I married Chu Yanli when the dynasty was on the brink of collapse and gave everything to help him bring peace to the land. After he ascended to the position of crown prince, he conspired with others to take everything from me. They cut off my leg bones to make drumsticks. I died with resentment and hatred on the eve of his enthronement as emperor. Given another chance, I will make them pay the price. Ding! RoyalStory reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Lin, don't be afraid, it won't hurt. Chu Yanli held a bowl of anesthetic herb, coaxing me gently to drink it. I clenched my teeth tightly and struggled fiercely. He tied me to a chair. Now, I had lost all my powers, and no matter how I struggled, I couldn't break free from the restraint. Chu Yanli's voice was gentle, but his grip was firm. He pinched my jaw, forcing me to drink all the anesthetic herb bit by bit. With the last drop of the anesthetic herb sliding down my throat, he tossed the bowl aside, the porcelain shattering crisply on the ground. "You can begin," he said. Chu Yanli walked out of the room with his hands behind his back, and to prevent the people outside from being frightened by my miserable screams, he thoughtfully closed the door. Outside, Zhou Shan eagerly greeted him, holding onto Chu Yanli's arm as if he were the one who had suffered. "Your Highness is doing this for the sake of the people, sister will understand in the future." The sorcerer summoned by Zhou Shan said that my bones were extraordinary, and if my leg bones were made into drumsticks, they would inspire the troops on the battlefield to victory. This absurd statement wouldn't deceive a 3-year-old child, but my husband, Chu Yanli, the crown prince, believed it. Ignoring my struggles and pleas, he insisted on using my leg bones to make drumsticks. Even though I had drunk the anesthetic herb, when the cold saw touched my flesh and bones, I trembled all over as the excruciating pain surged from my legs. "Chu Yanli, crown prince, I beg you, let me go." I screamed and pleaded towards the door. My voice was filled with extraordinary agony, but the only response I got was even stronger pain. Veins bulged, and sweat continuously dripped from my forehead as I stared desperately at the door, sinking into an endless abyss of hopelessness. Finally, I lost consciousness and passed out from the pain. When I woke up, I had lost my legs. Below the knees, there was nothing left. The crown prince, who had promised to take good care of me, had already taken Zhou Shan and the drumsticks made from my leg bones to the battlefield. They used the soldiers from my Chao Feng villa to win the battle. Chu Yanli became the beloved crown prince of the people, and Zhou Shan was praised as a legendary warrior goddess by the people. Only I was left, dragging my broken body and living as a prisoner in the cage they built for me. The only one by my side was Nanny Lu. Nanny Lu was an old servant of Chu Yanli, reclusive and seldom spoken to Chu Yanli over the years. After I married Chu Yanli, she surprisingly requested to take care of me personally. Even when I lost my status, she never abandoned me. Chu Yanli confined me in the plum garden courtyard under the guise of protection, but it was actually a house arrest. The world didn't know of my existence as the crown princess, they only knew that Zhou Shan was the crown prince's confidant. My heart was utterly desolate. So, when Chu Junmo sent a message to rescue me, I accepted without hesitation. He was a prince and my senior brother, always leading troops in the northwest. After I married Chu Yanli, he requested to reside permanently in the northwest. Though we seldom met, our bond remained. He would surely succeed in rescuing me. I wanted to live, for only by living could I reclaim what was mine. I intended to avoid Nanny Lu, but she discovered me. "Miss, let this old servant escort you out." My eyes grew hot, and I held her hand, unable to speak for a long time. She handed me over to the people outside who came to meet me. Before parting, she instructed them, "Take good care of Mississippi." In the dim light, Nanny Lu's expression appeared somewhat strange in the night. Everything went unusually smoothly, but shortly after, the men pushing my wheelchair began to act suspiciously. The wheelchair suddenly stopped, and the person leading the way disappeared in an instant. Suddenly, a group of people appeared in front of me, holding torches and arrows, all aimed at me. "Who sent you?" "We are here on orders to escort the miss," came the reply. It was Chu Junmo. "But why?" Before I had a chance to shout, countless arrows rained down on me. The night I died, chaos erupted in the capital. The emperor passed away, and rebel forces seized the opportunity to enter the city. Chu Yanli returned in time, saving the people from disaster and ending the chaos. After quelling the rebellion, Chu Yanli naturally ascended the throne and became emperor. The empress by his side was my sworn sister, Zhou Shan. Chu Yanli publicly declared that Crown Princess Zhou Shan had been by his side for years, sharing life and death with him, shunning fame and fortune to accompany him in secret. His heart was filled with guilt, so he specially conferred her the title of empress. Even the phoenix robe Zhou Shan wore for her coronation was made from the plumage of all the birds in Chao Feng Villa, personally crafted by him. The deep affection between the emperor and empress became a beautiful story, passed down among the people. They had their happy ending, but I met with an unjust death, unable to rest in peace. Upon waking again, I found myself at Chao Feng Villa. I was reborn back to a few years prior when Chu Yanli came to propose marriage to me. I cried tears of joy at seeing my complete and vibrant self in the mirror. "Master, someone from the palace is here," came a familiar voice with an urgent tone. It was Xiao. "Xiao, you're alive, that's great." I hugged Xiao tightly as she rushed in. Hey, master. What are you saying?" "Of course, I'm alive," Xiao pouted, unhappy with my comment. She didn't know, in my previous life, influenced by Zhou Shan, I sent her to work for him, which led to her tragic death. This time, I must protect her well. By the way, master, 2 distinguished guests have arrived from the palace. 2? I confirmed again. Yes. Xiao nodded. In my previous life, only Chu Yanli came, why are there 2 this time? I carefully groomed myself before heading to the reception hall, and from afar, I heard a delicate voice, "Your Highnesses, my sister is still busy. Allow me to entertain you first." Just as in the previous life, Zhou Shan arrived at the reception hall before me, securing her status as my sister. At that time, my father entrusted the Baijiao order to me and Zhou Shan, specifically telling me to guard Chaofeng Manor and take care of Zhou Shan. I treated her as my real sister and didn't expose her immediately. But it turned out she was my half-sister, and unwilling to stay beneath me, she harmed me repeatedly. Sorry to keep you waiting, I adopted the host's demeanor and sat directly in the main seat. Master Zhou. The 2 princes nodded to me, leaving Zhou Shan on the side. I noticed her darkening face but pretended not to see it, smiling as I introduced them. "You might not know, this is my father's adopted daughter, my foster sister, Zhou Shan." The 9th Prince Chu Junmo blurted out, "I knew there was only one daughter in Chaofeng Manor, where did this second miss come from?" Zhou Shan, looking embarrassed, quietly stepped aside. I invited them to have tea while discreetly observing them. In the previous life, when Chu Yanli came, Chu Junmo stayed in the northwest. Why is he here this time? May I ask why the 9th prince is here? Same as my 7th brother, to seek Miss Zhou's hand in marriage. I was sipping tea when his words nearly choked me. I coughed violently and Xiao came forward to help me. Chu Junmo, still rambling, said, "A beautiful lady is a gentleman's desire. My brother and I both seek her hand, so we will compete fairly." Chu Yanli's gaze at him could cut like knives. Chu Junmo studied under my father in his early years. We bickered daily, he mocked me for not being ladylike, while I teased him for being afraid of bugs. In the previous life, the night before my wedding to Chu Yanli, he fell ill, and Chu Junmo stood in for him during the ceremony. Shortly after, Chu Junmo requested to stay permanently at the border, and I never saw him again until he wrote, saying he'd come to save me when I lost my legs. Ultimately, I was shot to death by rebels. These 2, neither can be trusted. Both princes are extraordinary. How about staying at Chaofeng Manor while I decide? I kept them at the manor, not that I wanted to marry, but because I wanted to create opportunities for others in the manor. At night, as I was about to close the window, a hand stopped me. Chu Junmo, dressed in dark clothes, appeared outside, smiling as he jumped up to sit on the window frame. "What are you doing here?" I frowned at him, my inherent dislike for the royal family making me wary. Chu Yanli's approaching hand was instinctively slapped away by me. He sighed deeply, looking dejected. "Sister, have you become distant from your brother?" I stepped back. Does brother have something to say? Chu Junmo, dropping his jesting manner, stared at me seriously. Zhou Lin, do not marry Chu Yanli. Why? If I told you I had a dream where you married him and met a tragic end, would you believe me? I also had a dream where your men pierced my heart with 1,000 arrows, would you believe that? I countered. Pain and reluctance shadowed Chu Junmo's face as he said, it wasn't me. You see, dreams aren't reliable. Chu Junmo was speechless. Do not marry him no matter what. I nodded. Heaven granted me a second chance at life, how could I repeat past mistakes? Seeing my agreement, Chu Junmo left, satisfied, his joy evident even in his departing figure. Early the next morning, Xiao stormed in, muttering angrily, she's eager to impress, as if no one knows her already. Fastening my buttons, I asked, who are you talking about? Seeing me speak, Xiao grew more exasperated. Who else? Zhou Shan. She rushed to fawn over the 7th prince first thing in the morning. Both princes came for you, not her. I pondered silently, so early, and she's already cozying up to Chu Yanli? Xiao, growing angrier as she spoke, puffed out her cheeks. I couldn't help but chuckle. Miss, you're not angry? I casually adjusted my hair. Why be angry over irrelevant people? Xiao nodded thoughtfully. So, you favor the 9th prince? It makes sense, after all, he grew up with you here at Chaofeng Manor, like childhood sweethearts. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, Xiao had also warned me at this time. However, back then, I wholeheartedly trusted Chu Yanli and Zhou Shan, thinking that one was my true love and the other was my sworn sister who would never betray me. I dismissed Xiao's warnings as attempts to sow discord and scolded her harshly, breaking her heart. Since the two of them are mutually affectionate, this time, I will definitely make sure they end up together. Xiao, spread the word that I actually have a preference for the 7th prince. Huh? Miss, aren't you? Even though Xiao didn't understand, she still followed my instructions. To make it seem more real, I occasionally sent some treats and snacks to Chu Yanli, personally entertained him, and invited him for meals. After a few days, Zhou Lin hurried to find me. Sister. She hadn't even said a few words before tears started to fall, and she knelt before me. Sister, if you marry the 7th prince, can you take me with you? Even if I have to be a servant, I just want to be with you. She spoke so earnestly and movingly. In my previous life, I was deceived by this pitiful facade, allowing this beautiful but venomous woman to stay by my side, ultimately bringing about my own downfall. I felt contempt in my heart, but smiled on my face. I gently took her hand. You are my sworn sister. How could I let you be a servant? Besides, I promised father that I would take good care of you. Just as Zhou Lin was about to thank me with a smile, I slowly continued, I will definitely find a good family for you to marry. Zhou Lin froze. She seemed annoyed but didn't dare to show it, instead furrowed her brows pitifully. Sister, do you think I'm foolish and don't want to keep me by your side? You can't stay unmarried forever. I didn't want to continue entangling with her. Rest assured, I will find a good family for you. Seeing that I wouldn't budge, Zhou Lin reluctantly left. In her mind, what good family could compare to a noble royal family? If she wants it, she'll have to earn it herself, my dear sister. In the following days, I invited Chu Yanli to enjoy flowers and tea even more diligently. Every time I interacted with him, I had to endure nausea while also bearing the piercing gaze from a distance. I estimated the timing was right and took Xiao and others to Chu Yanli's residence. What's this? Junior sister is delivering food to my 7th brother again? Chu Junmo suddenly appeared and immediately eyed the hibiscus cake I had prepared. Hello, 9th prince. I greeted Chu Junmo with my attendants, tacitly admitting that I was there to deliver food to Chu Yanli. I want to go too. Previously, he only watched from the shadows. This time, he blatantly followed. I didn't stop him. To see a good show, the more people, the better. When we arrived at Chu Yanli's door, a female voice called out from inside. The maids behind me blushed. Feigning ignorance, I pushed the door open. 7th prince, I brought you. Before I could see the two entangled bodies on the bed, a warm hand covered my eyes, and Chu Junmo's voice came from above, "Don't look." It was gentle and reassuring. I pried his hand away, only to see a disheveled Chu Yanli and a panic-stricken Zhou Shan sitting on the bed, their bodies already apart. I started trembling all over, shocked and heartbroken by the scene, unable to speak. "You." I turned and ran away, leaving a devastated figure for others to see. Chu Junmo immediately came to comfort me. "I know you're sad, but in a way, it's a good thing. At least you won't suffer by marrying him." "How do you know marrying him would be suffering?" I questioned him. Chu Junmo hesitated, then said, "I just know. If you marry me, I will treat you well." I scrutinized him carefully. So far, he hadn't done anything to harm me. Instead, he had always helped me. Yet in my previous life, I died on the way he said he would take me away. Is he friend or foe? Chu Yanli and Zhou Shan's scandal quickly reached the palace. The response was that Chu Yanli was reckless and unruly, sentenced to 30 strokes and stripped of 1 year's salary. As for Zhou Shan, being someone from my family, she was handed over to me for punishment. But Zhou Shan is my sworn sister. Even if she did something to betray me, I can't bear to be ruthless. Seeing my reluctance, the nanny sent by the empress snorted coldly, "The young lady is too soft-hearted. No wonder the servants dare to climb over you. In my opinion, she should be slapped 50 times before any further punishment. If the young lady doesn't dare, this old servant can do it." Looking at the trembling Zhou Shan on the ground, I smiled at the nanny. No need for the nanny's help. Zhou Lin won't be biased. I squatted to the ground, appearing conflicted and helpless, and gently spoke to Zhou Shan, "Sister, it's natural to be punished for doing wrong, so you must endure." At my signal, Xiao quickly understood my meaning and slapped Zhou Shan across the face. She hit hard and used her strength cleverly, making it appear that the face wasn't red on the surface, but every slap injured the flesh underneath. The nanny in charge was dissatisfied seeing little visible damage. "Hit harder." Xiao had to keep hitting until Zhou Shan had taken far more than 50 hits before stopping. Even then, as Zhou Shan was dragged away, her face was only slightly red. But I knew Xiao used hidden strength, and before long, her face would swell up like a pig's head. I went to deliver medicine to her. When I saw her chubby face, I had to stifle a laugh. Chu Junmo, who followed me in, didn't hold back. He exaggeratedly covered his mouth and said, "Wow. Your face is as swollen as a monkey's butt." He even kindly put a mirror in front of her. Zhou Shan burst into tears immediately. "I can't show my face to anyone anymore." I took the opportunity to give her the medicine. Zhou Shan grabbed it like it was a lifeline and started applying it to her face. I was worried she might not use it, but this worked out perfectly for me. I forgot to mention, the medicine I gave her is special. It can reduce swelling, but the side effect is that it ruins the skin. I wonder how she'll feel when she sees her once proud face ruined by herself. I secretly rejoiced, but on the surface, I spoke with heavy concern. "I've already written to His Majesty. You are my sworn sister and a member of the Zhaofeng villa. If my sister replaces me in marrying the 7th prince to fulfill the royal marriage alliance, it would make sense. I plan to marry Zhou Shan to Chu Yanli, and while signing the contract with the royal family, I committed Zhaofeng villa to support the royal family fully, as always. To show sincerity, I first presented a large sum of money, and they agreed. In any case, I've finally rid myself of the fate of marrying into the royal family. As for Chu Junmo, I never intended to marry him. I can't trust anyone from the royal family. Just that. I deliberately stopped halfway. Just what? Zhou Shan asked urgently. Just that since my sister and the 7th prince are having an illicit affair, I'm afraid you can't marry him as a consort, only as a concubine, and you can't have a grand ceremony. Originally, the royal family planned to grant her the title of a secondary consort out of respect for me, but I insisted that being a concubine would be enough. Zhou Shan's face turned pale, full of reluctance. I had a hard time convincing the emperor and empress. You must marry within these few days. If not, and they blame us. Hearing this, Zhou Shan grew even more anxious. How can I face anyone with this face? I indeed wanted her to marry Chu Yanli with that ruined face, my dear sister. In my past life, my groom feigned illness and didn't show up on our wedding day, all thanks to her. Now, returning the favor doesn't feel harsh enough. In the end, Zhou Shan bit the bullet and married Chu Yanli with her ruined face. I heard that on their wedding night, Chu Yanli lifted the veil and cried out that she was too ugly, then stormed out. Chu Yanli didn't set foot in Zhou Shan's room for more than half a month, so Zhou Shan stayed hidden for that period. Even her homecoming visit was delayed until a month later when the marks on her face faded. Regardless of how her life was outside, Zhou Shan returned with a facade of grandeur. She deliberately showed off the jade bracelet on her wrist and said, "This is my homecoming gift from His Highness." After speaking, she shyly lowered her head. "The seventh prince treats me well. If he treats you so well, why didn't he accompany you back?" I didn't expose her lie, just watched her show quietly. "Sister, you are the fundamental reason I have a place in the prince's mansion. When I become the crown princess, I will never forget your great kindness and will surely repay you." I watched her with a forced smile. "My dear sister, your way of seeking my help is unique. I'm not worthy of your repayment. Also, the seventh prince is soon to be titled a prince, and because he married you, he has essentially lost his chance to vie for the throne." It seems Chu Yanli hasn't told her any of this, probably because he finds her presence irritating these days. Zhou Shan's stays in the seventh prince's mansion are still too comfortable. After sending Zhou Shan off, I took Xiao to meet Chu Junmo. "I want to ask for your help in finding someone. He has been leading troops in the northwest for years and knows the Shidi region well." Upon hearing who I wanted to find, his eyebrows furrowed. "How do you know about her?" In my past life, after marrying Chu Yanli, I overheard Nanny Lu mentioning that Chu Yanli had a childhood sweetheart who later married into Shidi as part of a peace arrangement. Through extensive querying, I confirmed she was the Shidi king's granted concubine, Princess Wu Qianqian, given to Major General Shidi. 2 years ago, the general died in battle, leaving Wu Qianqian a widow, and she's had a tough time since. I heard about her by chance. Why are you looking for her? Chu Junmo's scrutinizing gaze made me uneasy. If His Highness is unwilling to help, then forget it. Chu Junmo stopped questioning and massaged his forehead with a wry smile. "Okay, I'll get you the information." I didn't expect him to agree so easily. In less than half a month, Chu Junmo brought the person back. Chu Yanli saw her and went crazy. But what I didn't expect was that Nanny Lu cried and fainted when she saw her. Zhou Shan came to complain to me about this, extremely indignant. His Highness has been guarding that vixen every day these days, treating her like a treasure. And even more infuriating is that old woman Nanny Lu. Before she arrived, Nanny Lu would pretend to be attentive in front of me every day, even making soup for me out of false kindness. Fortunately, I was cautious and didn't drink the soup she had mixed with birth control medicine. "What did you say? Birth control medicine?" I was startled and couldn't help but shiver at the thought of how much soup I'd drunk from Nanny Lu in my previous life. Why would she do that? This old hag harbors resentment. Wu Qianqian is her true mistress, whom she has taken care of since childhood. She blames His Highness for not stopping Wu Qianqian's marriage alliance years ago. She doesn't dare to harm His Highness, so she secretly harms those around him, knowing His Highness won't blame her out of guilt. Nanny Lu avenged her mistress by secretly targeting Zhou Shan. If in the previous life, had she secretly harmed me too? Zhou Shan continued to vent her anger. That old woman doesn't think, being an illegitimate daughter of a minor prince, Wu Qianqian's title as a marquise through marriage is already a huge fortune. Hearing Zhou Shan's words, I couldn't help but feel a chill all over. The Nanny Lu I trusted the most, whom I never doubted even to this day, did so many things behind my back. Upon reflection, actions in the past life that seemed unintentional were likely deliberate. She intentionally mentioned Xiao, Chu Yanli's childhood sweetheart, in front of me, causing discord between me and Chu Yanli. She had me drink soup with contraceptive medicine, leaving me childless for years. And letting me leave in the end? Was it also in hopes that I would die in the chaos of battle? Because of Zhou Shan's words, I became restless and she herself was also in a terrible state in the seventh prince's mansion. Chu Yanli spoiled Wu Qianqian, ignoring Zhou Shan. Not only that, but Wu Qianqian, along with Nanny Lu, constantly made things difficult for Zhou Shan, secretly withholding her food, which Zhou Shan discovered. Furious, Zhou Shan angrily overturned the soup medicine Wu Qianqian was drinking. Wu Qianqian always had an old illness and suffered severely in Shidi, making her health even worse. She needed daily medicine. Zhou Shan deliberately overturned her soup medicine, and Wu Qianqian, missing her timely medication, had an asthma attack. Chu Yanli blamed Zhou Shan, who, tearfully, pleaded for leniency, complaining about her recent grievances, but it was useless. Chu Yanli had long been tired of her and confined her to her quarters for half a year. Less than a month into her confinement, Zhou Shan hastily came to find me. Wu Qianqian's presence in the 7th prince's mansion was discovered by the king of Shidi, who took the opportunity to send troops. In order to redeem himself, Chu Yanli requested to lead the army into battle. In the previous life, it was also around this time that there was a battle with Shidi. Zhou Shan borrowed my 100 birds token and took tens of thousands of soldiers from Chaofeng Villa to assist Chu Yanli. That battle was a great victory, with Chu Yanli ascending to crown prince and Zhou Shan becoming celebrated as a heroine by the common people, while I was stripped of my power and even caused Xiao's death. Zhou Shan took Xiao to the battlefield, causing her to die amidst the chaos. So this time, when Zhou Shan asked to borrow the 100 birds token, I refused her without hesitation. As for Xiao, she wouldn't even get to speak to her. Zhou Shan left with a resentful look. But I knew she definitely wouldn't give up easily. At night, Xiao rushed to inform me that the 100 birds token was missing. I led my people to leave the city overnight. Zhou Shan acted swiftly and arrived at Shidi first. Upon seeing her bringing the 100 birds token, Chu Yanli immediately dispatched troops to meet the enemy. Zhou Shan wanted to use the 100 birds token to summon the people of Chaofeng Villa, but everyone remained indifferent. Because the token she stole was a fake. Chu Yanli, attacking hastily without support, suffered defeat after defeat. At a critical moment, Chu Junmo and I arrived with the people of Chaofeng Villa, turning the tide. Chu Yanli, for his greed and recklessness causing near disaster, was stripped of his title by the emperor and exiled to the frontier upon his return to the capital. As for Zhou Shan, she was sentenced to death for seducing a prince, but I pleaded for her life with my own merits. Your Majesty, Zhou Shan is my sister. It was my fault for not disciplining her. I don't seek any other rewards, just plead for her life. So be it, she cannot escape severe punishment but will live. After the rolling needle punishment, you can take her back. Covered in wounds, Zhou Shan, like a dog, crawled on the ground. Seeing me, she struggled to smile. Sister, you came to take me back. I smiled sinisterly. Yes, I came to take you back, my dear sister. Soon, she would stop smiling. It would be too easy to let her die quickly. I would double the suffering she caused me in my past life. I took Zhou Shan back to Chaofeng Villa, ordering her to be washed with salt water daily, relishing in her daily and nightly wails. On the first day, I had her eyes gouged out, for in the past life, she deceived me and caused my blindness. On the second day, I had her mouth sewn shut, for her deceitful tongue that manipulated and took my 100 birds token. On the third day, mercury was poured into her ears, for causing the rift between Xiao and me. On the fourth day, I had her hands cut off, for separating me and my husband. On the fifth day, I chopped off her feet, avenging her plot that cost me mine. As for Chu Yanli, I visited him during his last moments before leaving the capital. 7th Prince, oh no, Commoner Chu Yanli, do you know why you've ended up like this today? I stepped on him and ground my foot down hard, because you are blind and heartless, just like I was. But I've woken up, while you haven't repented. You deserve to be reduced to a pile of muck. Chu Yanli suddenly realized, all this was your doing? So what if it was? What can you do about it? Chu Yanli struggled hard a couple of times, but it was futile. He was still ruthlessly stomped under my foot. You never cherished those in front of you. It was true before, and it's true now. You listened to slander and ended up wrapped in your own cocoon. You deserve to be deposed. Did you know? That miss who you treasured so much ran off without hesitation the moment she heard you were deposed. Aside from your status, you mean nothing to her. I shifted my foot downward, moving to his most vulnerable spot and pressed down hard. A dreadful scream echoed through the prison, and Chu Yanli was truly ruined. Just as I stepped out of the jail, I bumped into Chu Junmo. He stood there with his hands behind his back, as if he'd been waiting for me. You've had your revenge. Are you happy? Exhilarated. I laughed wildly, but as I laughed, tears rolled down my cheeks. Chu Junmo embraced me and gently stroked my head. It's all in the past now. Why are you helping me? I lifted my head from his embrace and stared at him intently. This time, I want to protect you. Do you remember the dream I told you about? In the end of that dream, I failed to save you and fell into a trap, resulting in your death at the hands of those people. They killed you in my name. As he spoke, Chu Junmo started trembling uncontrollably. I held him and gently patted his back. It's okay, it was just a dream. I'm still alive and well. Chu Junmo buried his head into my shoulder, his voice thick with emotion. Lin Lin, you must live well. Zhou Shan died, struggling off the bed before falling to her death. I had her buried without a ripple in my heart. The people I sent to find Wu Qianqian and her companions returned with news that they had gone to Yuzhou. Coincidentally, chaos erupted in Yuzhou, and Wu Qianqian along with Nanny Lu perished in the turmoil. Saved me the trouble of doing it myself. I finally understood, in my past life, Nanny Lu and Chu Yanli had colluded from within and without to kill me. They first murdered the people Chu Junmo sent to support me and then pretended to be them to kill me. Dying had long been in a precarious state. At this time, chaos was breaking out everywhere. In my past life, there were both Chu Yanli and Chu Junmo to quell the chaos. In this life, only Chu Junmo was left. He was clearly struggling. To help him, I used all the power of Chaofeng Manor, but this time, military power was in my hands. As I quelled the rebellion, my forces grew stronger. I was wholeheartedly supporting this shaky royal family, but to my surprise, the emperor ordered me to hand over half of my military power. Indeed, the entire Chu royal family, except for Chu Junmo, had no one who knew how to handle things properly. The moment I received the decree, I directly ordered a halt, stationing my troops where we were. To hell with the Qingzhou upheaval. Because of my halt, Qingzhou was nearly overrun by the rebels, and it was only saved because Chu Junmo hurried over day and night. After this incident, the high and mighty emperor realized the tide had turned. He was no longer the mighty ruler whose word was law. Even if I neglected my duties, he could do nothing against me. I suddenly understood why in my past life, Chu Yanli desperately climbed his way up. It turns out, holding power feels like this. With such a riddled kingdom, are you still going to fight to protect it? Seeing Chu Junmo's exhausted state, I couldn't help but ask. He pulled a weary smile on his haggard face. The ancestral foundation cannot be shirked. But dying, this kingdom is completely chaotic, rotten to the core. You can't save it. Perhaps it was time to establish a new dynasty. Since I was already in this whirlpool, this time, I would not let someone else hold the knife over me, wantonly slaughtering me. This time, I would be the one holding the knife. Chu Junmo said nothing, suddenly covering his mouth and coughing violently. Perhaps he was too tired, he seemed very frail lately. I never expected that at this moment, Chu Yanli would incite tens of thousands of exiles from the border to rebel. A mighty army marched towards the capital. I regretted not killing him back then. Dying was completely thrown into chaos. The emperor died in the year Chu Yanli raised his rebellion. At the same time, various forces raised their banners, plunging the land into a state of war. Chu Junmo and I spent 3 years recapturing most of the rebel-held territories. Only Chu Yanli remained. Victory means dominion, defeat means death. The battle tomorrow will settle everything. Chu Junmo told me. In these 3 years, we had been inseparable, our feelings had long surpassed the ordinary. And you and I. I picked up the wine jug on the table, about to take a swig, but Chu Junmo stopped me. A look of disbelief flashed in his eyes, soon replaced by understanding. Lin Lin, I will not compete with you. He adjusted his cloak. After defeating Chu Yanli, if you desire, you will be the empress of the new dynasty. In such a warm season, he was still wrapped in a thick cloak. Are you serious? I was a bit surprised. He was actually willing to give up his throne. There isn't much time left. Chu Yanli let out a long sigh and was about to send me away. There will be a fierce battle tomorrow, go to bed early. The war was extremely brutal, blood covering my eyes again and again, and the sound of slaughter filled the dark red world. In the end, we won, and both Chu Yanli and I survived. Chu Yanli died, and his son Chu Fan became a prisoner. He knelt at my feet, his face full of defiance. His face looked just like a smaller version of Chu Yanli. Do whatever you want. Chu Yanli stepped in front of him. He's still a child, don't kill him. I approached with my sword bit by bit. He cut off Xiao's arm. I must avenge him. If he hadn't appeared suddenly, I might have forgotten about him. He was Chu Yanli's child born to a servant before he married me. He had always been ignored by Chu Yanli but liked to seek attention in front of me. He secretly released a snake to bite me, which was the true beginning of my life's tragedy. I was poisoned. There were obviously several solutions, but Zhou Shan persuaded Chu Yanli to use the most dangerous one, crippling my martial arts skills. Then she shamelessly refused to return my 100 birds order, taking everything that belonged to me, and ultimately causing my death. I had taken revenge on all of them, but I had forgotten Chu Fan, and now he cut off Xiao's arm. With both new and old grudges, there was no way I could spare him. Zhou Lin, no. I beg you, for my sake, spare his life. Stop pretending, I don't need you to save me. Chu Fan was still stubborn. I raised my sword and stabbed it into his chest. He twitched twice and then stopped breathing. Chu Yanli looked at me in disbelief, his eyes bloodshot. Zhou Lin, he was just a child. He fell backward and fainted. Chu Yanli no longer saw me, and even to avoid me, he went to Duer Temple to become a monk. Grudges buried, we won't meet again. These were the last words he left for me. I became the founding empress of the new dynasty, ushering in a new era. Under my rule, the new dynasty flourished. I chose an emperor consort, took many royal concubines, and had numerous descendants. In my old age, I abdicated the throne, hiding in the harem, enjoying the company of my grandchildren. A young granddaughter lay at my knee, with her innocent little face asking me, "Imperial grandmother, the teacher taught me a new word today, regret. Do you know what it means?" After I explained it to her, she asked me innocently, "Imperial grandmother, have you ever had any regrets?" Perhaps it was that I never got to see that person again. Chu Yanli's epilogue. Father said he would select one of us princes to marry into the Fengshan Manor. I was sent to Fengshan Manor to learn martial arts since childhood and grew up with Zhou Lin. I thought the one to marry her would certainly be me. She said she admired great heroes. So, I left Fengshan Manor at 14 and went to the battlefield at 16, thinking that once I earned military honors, I would ask to marry Zhou Lin. I fought against the Shidi at the border, narrowly escaping death many times, sustained solely by the thought of her. But what I received was news of her wedding to Chu Yanli. By the time I rushed back, it was too late. Zhou Lin was happily preparing to marry Chu Yanli. On the verge of marriage, Chu Yanli suddenly claimed he was feeling unwell. I offered to marry her in his place, and father agreed. I held Zhou Lin's hand through all the wedding rites, but in the end, I had to step aside in silence. For this life, let it be that I have already married her. I returned to the northwest, forcing myself not to think of her, but still heard bits and pieces about her life. She wasn't doing well. Later, the Shidi invaded, and Chu Yanli was ordered to support the battle, bringing other women with him. I fought with him, but it ended inconclusively. This time, we won the battle. Chu Yanli became the crown prince. Later, I heard that Zhou Lin lost her martial arts skills, while Chu Yanli and Zhou Shan continued to wage wars everywhere. He lost several battles and even believed slanderous advice to use her leg bones to make drumsticks. Ridiculous! I wanted to save her and secretly returned to the capital, only to find that Chu Yanli had already seized control. He ambushed me and had his men, disguised as mine, kill her. I died with regrets, vowing at the last moment that I would give anything to start over again. This time, I will never miss her again. I will give her everything she wants.